Well, howdy, y'all. This is Mr. Marble, or the Marble, rather. Um, Back on the YouTube, reading the scriptures. This right here, it's backwards, but whatever. You can, if you're competent enough, you know your letters, and you can write it down or something. But it says Sefer, and if you look up that word, it is in the Hebrew language, it is a numbered writing, and that's literally what it is. It's got numbers here. There's a chapter. There's numbers over here. For verses. That's what a sefer is. But it's got all of these wonderful 66 books, and it's also got some other things in here that add eyewitness and other historical aspects to give you a better picture of what is going on in there. So, in the last video, we were reading Bere'shiyth, Genesis chapter 31. And what was going on there was in chapter 30 anyway, Lavan's cattle, his possessions. Well, let's start it off this way. So Lavan, in the previous videos, hires his nephew Jacob, to work for him, to look after his sheep, his herds, and his cattle, his flocks, all of that. For 7 years for one daughter, named Leah, the elder, and then he got deceived, and when after those two got married, so he decides to go and work another 7 years for the one he wanted to marry, the younger daughter, Rachel. And so he works so that's 14 years, 7 years per daughter. And then he hires him again when he wants to leave and go back to his daddy, Yitzhak. And so Lavan hires him again. Hey, come on, stay a while. Let's figure something out, And so he said, "Well, I'll look after your cattle and this and that. I'll do the same work I've been doing if I get a portion of your cattle, and I'm gonna pick out all the gross and ugly, nasty looking ones, and that aren't pleasant to the eyes and have issues, that are the feebler and the weak and just not all that great ones." And so he picks all of those out of his flock. And so Yaakov's starting with a cruddy breed, all the worst of the breeds. That's Yaakov's portion. That's his hire, that Lavan is hiring him for his work. And so this is going on. He does something with some branches and sticks them in the water troughs whenever he wants the calves or the livestock to conceive and give birth. And so eventually it worked around, and Lavan changes his wages again and again and again to a total of 10 times. And so back on 31 now, um, to where uh, Yaakov now has the greater portion of the stronger uh, the herd that's going to survive and be able to outlast any all the disease and all of this stuff. That's now Yaakov's portion, and the weak and the smaller portion of the herd and flocks and everything's now Lavan's. And so they did a massive switcheroo over, I believe it was like 6 years that he was working for him, for a total of 20 years that he was working for his uncle. And so now he has plenty to provide for his family, but his cousins, Lavan's sons, are kind of looking pretty rudely at him now and talking behind his back and saying everything that was ours and our father's, Yaakov, our cousin, is taken away. And Yaakov could kind of see in his uncle's eyes that he wasn't really liking him anymore. You know, you kind of outlasted your stay, if you will, um, kind of attitude towards him. And so he he gets a call on the old telephone from the father. Um, go back to the land of your fathers. Get back home, boy. So he goes and calls his two wives. Says, "Hey, um, we're gonna get out of here, and your dad's not liking me anymore. He, you know, as he did before. So we're gonna pack up and go back to my place, my dad's place, and we're gonna live there now." And he starts explaining himself with everything. You know, he's not liking me. You know, your brothers aren't really being nice and all this, and um, I'm just kind of done with your dad. He's changed my wages 10 times, and you know, anytime the calves bore this, you know, and then he changed my wages, and then whatever he gave me as my hire, this happened, and this didn't for him. And so Yah blessed me, and he's taken everything that was your dad's, and he's blessed me with it. You know, this is what happened. You know, kind of doing that kind of deal. And Raquel and Leah was like, "Well, is there anything at all left for us?" And so going in that way about it, Yaakov never came with a dowry to provide for either of those two women that he married and our wives to him. And so that was an interesting thing. Then, because Yaakov came with nothing, he didn't have a pillow. He used stones for pillow in the wilderness, and uh, he probably had the garments on his back, and that was about it. And so he had nothing when he came, and now he's got this great multitude of maidservants and men servants, camels and asses, and sheep and cattle, livestock to the max. Um, Yahweh blessed him big time. And but in this exchange of Yaakov's possessions in livestock herds and all of that becoming Yaakov's, what does Yaakov's name mean? Supplanter. Um, I guess another homonym. I think that's the word I'm looking for. A word that is similar in definition to the other. Uh, you could kind of say, in a sense, usurper. But yeah, that was supplanted into and given to him. Uh, but I'm kind of jumping around. Uh, with going back to him not having a dowry, him not having anything, to him having all of these things, um, and then his two wives saying, uh, "Is there anything left as a possession of inheritance for us?" And it says, "Are we not counted of him as strangers? And he has sold us and quite devoured also our money." So they were they were to be gotten an inheritance of his father's, of their father, and it says, "For all the riches which Elohim has taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatever Elohim has said unto you, do." So, um, it's it kind of goes along with Yaakov's name in a way, uh, and that happens. So that's interesting. Um, and so Yaakov started packing up camp and starting the convoy train back to his old daddy's place, Yitzhak's. And Lavan went to go shear his sheep, and while everybody was packing stuff up, Rachel, she decided to steal, it says, her father's images. Now, in other translations, or the Hebrew word for images is teraphim. Now, this word is quite something. Um, it's not images, that's a nice painting, that somebody had given me, somebody very important to me had given to me. It's not an image of something from a geographical location, no, which is a beautiful place, which I'd like to go back to again. These are also not images, but what the word teraphim comes from literally is shrunken heads. So, what is a shrunken head? Well, in this context, it was. I'm not going to go through the whole details because that's just. I'm not going to go there. But it was to. It was the firstborn of somebody who was slain. And they would take that head and redacting details, that would create the shrunken head, and they would worship it and bow down to it, and it would speak back to them. You're working. That's a no-no. As we will get into with the rest of the Torah books, um, says, I am Yahweh Eloheka, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh your God. You shall have no other gods before me. That means no idols, nothing that you are putting out there in place of our Creator, nothing that you are putting as a higher importance to our Creator. Yahweh is one, Echad, and He reserves that alone for Himself because He is a jealous God. Read the rest of the book. Find out for yourselves how jealous He is and how patient and merciful He is and long suffering and waiting for you to grab and reach out for His hand. Because there's a time coming where the book will be sealed. Let's jump back. So Raquel steals her father's household family shrunken head teraphim idols, images. And so it was 3 days journey that Lavan finally, Yaakov and his convoy were already out 3 days before Lavan heard word that they had left, and so he arms some servants, and his sons and him go pursuing after them hotly, and so they were at a mad race to chase him down. And so they're working their way out, and Yaakov, found a spot in a place called Gilead, and that's where Lavan and his band overtook them and said, "Yo, what the crap? Why'd you leave without saying goodbye and all this and that?" And Yaakov's like, "I was afraid, blah blah this, and you changed my wages 10 times. I got sick of this, and you know, we're getting out of here." And he's like, "Well, why? I mean, you stole my heirloom family images, my idols. What was that all about?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Whoever you find them with, let them die this day." And so that's an interesting portion and nugget that we will go back to on our recapping parts of the video. And because who had the teraphim? Raquel, right? As we just discussed. So Yaakov is speaking this sentence of death over his wife. And if y'all know the rest of the story, you know where I'm getting at with that part. But Lavan couldn't find him, and so Yaakov's pretty pissed off that he couldn't find anything. He said, "Whatever's yours, put it between us." And I haven't stolen a darn thing from you. He's like, "Everything you have here besides you is mine. These are my daughters, these are my cattle, my livestock, and these are my sons and daughters, my children. Everything here that you see besides yourself is mine." So they cut a covenant. They make an oath to each other as and with a heap and a pillar, and them and Yahuwah as witness. So they they said they're setting a truce, a treaty. They're making a treaty between them, and that neither of them will pass the heap or the pillar um, to do the other harm. So one's not going to pass the heap, one's not going to pass the pillar to do the other harm. Just in case y'all didn't understand that part. Um, so, and Lavan swore by the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Nahor, and the Elohim of their father as judge between them. And Yaakov swore by the fear of his father Yitzhak. So, um, let's jump into chapter 32, shall we? And Yaakov went on his way, and the angels of Elohim met him. And when Yaakov saw them, he said, "This is Elohim's host." And he called the name of that place Machanayim. And Yaakov sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother. Sorry, got messed up. And Yaakov sent messengers before him to Esau his brother into the land of Seir, the country of Edom, and he commanded them, saying, "Thus shall you speak unto my lord Esau. Your servant Yaakov says thus, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed there until now, and I have oxen and asses, flocks, maidservants, and women servants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I may find grace in your sight." And the messengers returned to Yaakov, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and also he comes to meet you, and 400 men with him." Then Yaakov was greatly afraid and distressed. And he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels in two bands, and said, "If Esau comes to one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape." And Yaakov said, "O Elohim of my father Abraham, and Elohim of my father Yitzhak, Yahuwah which said unto me, Return unto your country, and to your kindred will I deal well with you. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which you have showed unto your servant. For with my staff I passed over this Yarden, and now am I to become two bands. Deliver me, I pray you, from the hand of my brother, and from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will become and smite me and the mother with the children. And you said, I will surely do you good and make your seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude." And he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for his brother Esau, 200 she-goats, and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 kine with their bulls, and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hands of his servants, and every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space twixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meets you, and asks you, saying, Whose are you, and where go you, and whose are these before you? Then you shall say, They be your servant Yaakov's. and it is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third and all that followed the drove, saying, On this manner shall you speak unto Esau when ye find him. And when ye moreover behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 women, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them, and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. And Yaakov was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Yaakov's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaks. And he said, I will not let you go, except you bless me. And he said unto him, What is your name? And he said, Yaakov. And he said, Your name shall no longer be called Yaakov, but Yasharel. For as a prince you have power with Elohim and with man, and have prevailed. And Yaakov asked him and said, Tell me, I pray you, your name. And he said, Wherefore is it that you do ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Yaakov called the name of that place Penuel. For I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Yasharel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Yaakov's thigh and the sinew that shrank. This is the ending of the reading of Bere'shiyth, Genesis, chapter 32. See y'all on the next one. Shalom.